Todd Grimshaw's grief and anger following Theo Silverton's death bubbled over in tonight's episode of Coronation Street. The investigation into Theo's murder continued, with DS Lisa Swain and DC Kit Green's suspicions falling squarely on Gary Windass. Maria Connor gave him an alibi for the time of the murder, but an accidental selfie taken by Sally Metcalf places him squarely at the scene of the crime. He isn't the only suspect, however, with George Shuttleworth, Christina Boyd, Danielle Silverton, Summer Spellman, and Theo's ex Todd also in the frame. Todd has become increasingly paranoid in his grief and in the wake of the abuse he suffered from Theo, accusing those closest to him of murdering Theo, and he even met up with Gary to grill him, which was witnessed by Kit. Tonight's episode began with Lisa and Kit sharing their latest theories, and Lisa described Gary's alibi as being as dodgy as Kit's aftershave. Lisa asked Kit what Sarah Platt, his partner, thought, with her being close to Todd and the possibility that he may have told her something that would lead them to the killer. Later, Todd visited the Rovers with Christina, where he appeared worse for wear. Lisa and Kit also arrived for a quiet drink, where they asked Todd to be patient until they have a suspect. Todd was clearly enraged, but sat down to enjoy his pint in peace. He overheard Kit and Lisa discussing the case, which caused him to snap and make a bold accusation. "If you lot had kept him locked up, none of this would have happened," he said to Lisa, while those around him told him to calm down. They accused Todd of having too much to drink, and it was suggested that perhaps he should leave, but Todd refused. How long will he continue to spiral, and is his behavior motivated by secrets we viewers don't yet know? On a rain-soaked night in Weatherfield, the streets around Coronation Street felt unusually silent. The flashing blue lights outside number 11 had already drawn a crowd, but whispers spread faster than the cold wind. Theo Silverton was dead. For Todd Grimshaw, the news hit like a punch to the chest. Theo had never been an easy man to understand. Charming one minute, secretive the next, he carried the kind of darkness that made people uneasy. Yet Todd believed there was more to him than the rumors and angry confrontations that seemed to follow him everywhere. That belief now left Todd standing in the middle of a growing mystery. Inside the Rover's return, tension filled the air thicker than cigarette smoke. Sarah Platt sat quietly in the corner while Carla Connor watched the door nervously. Everyone had a theory about what happened to Theo, but nobody dared say too much aloud. Todd entered, soaked from the rain. "Where's Billy?" he asked sharply. "He's talking to the police," Sarah replied carefully. Todd nodded, but his eyes searched the room until they landed on George Shuttleworth. George looked pale, gripping his drink so tightly his knuckles had turned white. That was enough for Todd. "You know more than you're saying," Todd accused. The pub fell silent. George frowned. "Don't start, Todd." "Oh, I've already started," Todd snapped. "Theo called me yesterday. He sounded terrified. He said someone on this street was threatening him." Carla leaned forward. "Threatening him over what?" Todd hesitated. Theo had hinted at secrets, dangerous ones. He never explained fully, but he mentioned money, betrayal, and someone close to the family. Before Todd could answer, Billy entered the pub. His face carried exhaustion and fear. "The police are treating it as suspicious," Billy announced quietly. Gasps echoed around the room. Todd immediately turned toward George again. "You were the last person to see him alive." George slammed his glass down. "I already told the police. Theo came by the funeral home drunk and angry. He wanted cash." "And you refused him?" Todd asked. "Yes." Todd stepped closer. "Then why did the neighbors hear shouting?" George's silence spoke volumes. Across the room, Eileen Grimshaw watched anxiously. She knew Todd well enough to recognize when his emotions were taking control, but she also knew he was rarely suspicious without reason. Billy pulled Todd aside. "You need to calm down." "No," Todd replied. "Someone's lying." The accusations spread through the pub like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone became nervous. Sarah avoided eye contact. Carla folded her arms defensively. Even Jenny Connor looked shaken behind the bar. Then came the bombshell. A police officer entered and asked to speak with Todd privately. Minutes later, Todd returned looking stunned. "What happened?" Billy asked. Todd swallowed hard. "Theo left me a voicemail." The room froze. "He said if anything happened to him, I shouldn't trust George." All eyes turned instantly toward George, whose face drained of color. "That's rubbish," George protested. "Theo was manipulating you." Todd's voice trembled with anger. "Then tell everyone where you were after midnight." George hesitated too long. The silence was devastating. Billy stepped between them before the confrontation could explode further. "Enough. The police will figure it out." But Todd wasn't convinced. Deep down, he sensed Theo's death wasn't random. Someone had wanted him silenced. Later that night, Todd returned to Theo's flat. Police tape covered the doorway, but Todd couldn't stay away. Memories lingered in every corner. Unfinished conversations, unanswered questions, and the feeling that Theo had been trying desperately to escape something. As Todd searched the dimly lit room, he noticed a photograph lying half-burned in the sink. It showed Theo standing beside an unknown woman and George. Todd's heart raced. Why would George hide knowing Theo so closely? Footsteps suddenly creaked behind him. Todd spun around. George stood in the doorway. "You shouldn't be here," George warned quietly. Todd held up the damaged photo. "You lied to me." George sighed heavily, guilt washing across his face. "You don't understand." "Then explain." For a moment, George looked close to breaking. "Theo owed dangerous people money. I tried helping him months ago, but he dragged me into a mess I wanted no part of." Todd narrowed his eyes. "That still doesn't explain why Theo feared you." "Because I threatened to expose him," George admitted. "He'd been scamming people." Todd stepped back shocked. Everything he believed about Theo suddenly became uncertain. Was Theo truly a victim, or had his past finally caught up with him? Before Todd could respond, police sirens echoed outside again. George looked terrified. And then Todd realized something chilling. George wasn't scared of the police. He was scared of whoever else might be coming. As shadows moved beyond the frosted windows, Todd understood the mystery surrounding Theo's death was far darker than anyone on Coronation Street imagined, and the killer might still be watching them all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Coronation Street Scoop News Update.